And Critical Play. This is our first Twitch, and we're here with the Assassin's Creed Discovery Tour, or what we call the Tour Without Discovery. We're going to look at several different tours and discuss some of the pedagogical issues and some of the gameplay, if we're to call it gameplay.
All right, so the first thing we're going to do is just kind of walk through what we're seeing here on the screen. This is the options area for discoveries, and it starts with a map of ancient Egypt and the world, lets you travel around and get a sense of where you are in the world, kind of. One of the things that I was noting as I was playing this a couple of days ago is it's pretty obviously it's going to be constrained to Egypt, but it doesn't really place Egypt into a larger global sense. It's really localized in this way.
Yeah, there's no sense of place in a broader idea of that geography. This could be anywhere on a globe.
Yeah, I can't go past the Mediterranean Sea here, and when you go south, there's no other bits of Africa.
It's kind of in the sense it's a flat world,
right? And
there's the end of the world there.
Yeah. So, in terms of a kind of pedagogy of geography, I don't know. I think students might be really confused by something like this.
Yeah, the overlapping of taking a game with mechanics of gameplay and then putting it in a educational format. They didn't extend it to that educational format.
Right.
I think that's what Sean's getting at, is that there's a missing component to that education. If it is educational, then where's the rest of the globe? And we might understand why they didn't do that in a financial sense.
Right.
It still makes it difficult, I think, for a student to place it.
Right, and given world history's emphasis on global connections and cross-cultural exchange and all of the other kind of Bentley-esque ideas, here we're sitting in this kind of isolated world that is just Egypt. As you play through the characters, you can get some sense maybe of interconnectedness. You have Egyptian characters, Roman characters, and Greek characters that you can play with, but there's no difference when you select these. So right now we've selected a Greek man to play with. Playing with that character changes nothing in the narrative structure of the educational game, so you can walk it, right? In fact, you can walk around as, if I can figure this out, you can walk around as Cleopatra or Ptolemy or even Julius Caesar. So we can play as Caesar here.
And I think the game, some of those names are obviously would be familiar to students, and people familiar with the general era, but it seems it's left up, and this may be good, it left up to the educator or teacher to then contextualize that. I'm not sure. Are you sure, Sean, if there's any material for educators in terms of how to contextualize, or is that left up to the classroom setting itself?
It's left up to the teacher. As far as I can see, nobody's produced anything yet in terms of like a pedagogical guide to the game. Or at least Ubisoft hasn't put that together, and I'd be leery if they did.
Sure.
In some ways.
Well, they make a big deal about making this historical, right, and using Egyptologists and others to make it historical. Not, neither Sean nor I are Egyptologists or ancient historians, but we definitely can speak to the gameplay and the pedagogical mechanics that are either in the game or not.
And I think it's not in this case. And here is a really good example, right? In the options screen, and this is buried pretty deep in the options screen. And I find it hard to believe that students would be digging this deep unless instructed by somebody. They offer this timeline, but the timeline, this is it. This is all you can do with the timeline. You can't click around on it or anything, and you've got this idea of today here, the 2000s, connected by a long distance away from 0 BCE and the reign of Cleopatra. Right, the game itself takes place during the Ptolemaic era, so right in here. But what does this offer any student?
Well, I think it conforms to the idea that history is a timeline, or history is information that you can glean from reading a script.
Right, and it's linear and
teleological.
Yeah. So let me back out. Let's start one of the tours. Choosing tours, you have Egypt, pyramids, Alexandria, right? I mean, there's these, and we're
There's
gonna
79, I think, somewhere in that range.
That's 20.
No, total. Like
yeah, you could add them up. 40, somewhere in the 70s. We're gonna play around with daily life today, and first one, just because we're going to look at beer and bread. And let's launch
Peniagua.
this. I think we can launch from
daily intakes. I bet it can have several meanings. And
yeah.
I'm not sure what that.
This is not what I wanted to do. Let's back out.
Those are the stations you could attend.
Let's fast travel to beer and bread. And here we go.
We're on our journey. I feel like I should be in a Jeep doing this.
All right, so there we are as Caesar. I forgot to change characters again. You do, in this, as the load screens load, there are some kind of little factoids there that somebody could read and pick up on. One of the things I noticed is that during this period, or during this part of the gameplay, day-night does cycle, and often you lose sight of some of the more important aspects as you're walking through this. So for those unfamiliar with the game, what you do is you walk up to that shining little portal that I just walked into.
I don't think we could call it a game.
No, okay, that's fair. And you hit the press start tour button, and what it does is it gives you a yellow brick road to follow.
Oh, that's a ribbon.
All right, so we're going to follow the ribbon then, not the yellow brick road.
You don't have to follow the ribbon, but not following the ribbon does nothing for you except for run around.
Except you can make Caesar jump around.
You get some of the mechanics from the game, jumping, climbing, but none of the adventure and discovery of the game.
Right,
you're a ghost, as you could run through that individual. You're a ghost to the world.
You can hide. Right.
Caesar hiding.
And Caesar hiding in the bushes to
He was a Caesar salad.
to surprise his people. Hello. Right. In some ways, this is absolutely ridiculous. Especially playing as Caesar, a known historical figure, where he, interacting with an environment like this, had Caesar walked through a village, I think people might have noticed him.
Yeah, and it seems that they only use those historical figures to get students interested in the idea of playing it, but then it does nothing more than that.
Right.
And I think like a lot of this, you can hear the museum voice in the background reading the script that I, like many others, am able to read. But I suppose this could be for a multiplicity of reasons, people needing it to be read.
Temples used it, along with bread, as payment to workers, and it was included on the lists of food offerings to the gods.
This is essentially a museum tour with a controller, where you can go to the museum in your home.
But it takes the worst part of a museum and the worst parts of video games and combines the two together.
Well, two negatives are supposed to make a plus. I thought that maybe they were working on some basic mathematical model.
Right. So as you saw there while we were talking a second ago, I walked up onto one of the markers In this case, it is the marker that is titled "The Importance of Beer and Bread," and this is the first station along the way to the beer making area. And right, once you've entered into this, there is no more interactivity. This is the extent of it. You can look around from a distance, and you get to read the text that was just, as Jeff said, just read to you. Right here, you have an Assyrian mercenary drinking beer with a straw. I can read text to you too, from the 14th century, and obviously this little piece of museum or a museum artifact, yeah. And you close that, you close this part of it, and now you can walk around again as Caesar and check these things out. But this is where I really think that Ubisoft missed out. This is where you would think you would have some kind of interactivity, right? Where you could maybe, I don't know, have a conversation with this guy, and he might tell you what he's doing. You lose. I mean, part of a video game is having that immersion and interactivity and discovery. And they use the word discovery, but there is none. And I suppose it would have cost them more, because they're dependent on the visuals here. That's all you're getting. But if you were to have discovery, you could do a puzzle. You could figure out the parts of the beer. Right.
Like basic walking sims do this. You don't do much more than walk, but you have to solve really simple puzzles that make you part of the game. And like Sean mentioned, that would be an interesting point if you had a basic conversation, learned of the ingredients, and had to make it in a certain order.
Yeah, maybe even go, pick up those ingredients.
Then you get points or something for it. And then instead of doing the tours and then getting your icons for it, you actually gain icons for the tour itself.
Right. So here you have a bunch of Egyptian technology, right? Some form of, it looks like either wastewater or water management for the brewing system. I don't know, because it's not telling me or letting me interact with this in any way.
And what I might imagine is, if they had done something here, is they would just put a marker here telling me this was the runoff or effluvia from the beer making. But again, if you could interact and do something with it, that one engages. And pedagogically, I mean, they're using a model of talking to the students, which presumably they're getting in the classroom, and the idea of a video game is that you're engaged in the process of discovery, or whatever process of learning you're doing.
Right. One assumes that that's grain there that I'm standing on top of, and again, there's no sense of where the grain comes from, right? Where the grain comes from, the trade that brought the grain into this part of the world, where it was grown, how it was processed or brought.
Even what might make it interesting for me to know that.
Right. Well, yeah. And how do you? I mean, in some ways, you could have really gamified this.
Careful, you're going to hit a marker.
Yes, we got it.
Beer was the popular drink of ceremonies and festivals. The Festival of Drunkenness was even dedicated to it. Considered to be quite nutritional,
it seems several of the tours are focused on, let's say this one, beer. They mentioned drunkenness. There's mummies and kind of the skulls. There are pyramids. There's wine. There's crucifixion. There are these sort of things that they seem to want to connect to students in kind of a different or gruesome sort of way. But then they become these banal sorts of markers that don't do anything.
Right. Like this. Why do I mean, honestly, why does one care about the drunken festival, the day-to-day consumption of beer? At least in this context, all it is trivia. And so, if this is something that a student is playing, they're walking away with that sense of history as trivia, as facts-based. There's no interpretation. There's no sense of the idea or the skills-based in history. And I think this is where this really falls down as a teaching tool. I really fail to see how it's an effective pedagogical tool. I mean, what is this area that we're in? We have no idea, right? Obviously, these are ovens, but if I'm a fourth grader or a fifth grader, right, even somebody in high school, what am I getting from this?
It's interesting on another level in that sense is the original Assassin's Creeds built some sort of history into the buildings and the people, and you could look at those and read the history, and in here, obviously for this game Origins, they separated those two, and they separated them in, for my opinion, the worst possible fashion. And as Sean mentions, they reduce history to a timeline, to factual information, where history is not a process at all. And this is where students often come to my classroom with these ideas, and this is only reinforcing history as is oft quoted, one damn thing after another, and in here with no particular sense of why it matters. And if I lectured in this voice, and I'm not saying I'm a great lecturer, but I have in my notes, this is boring, and I'm not interested. And I'm an historian.
Fruits such as dates were added, along with honey and spices.
All right, so again, another little bit of factual information as we follow the line through. Right, and here you get a model that you would see in any museum display. In fact, it's from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. One of the other things that I kind of noticed this playing through some of the other sections of this is the inconsistency sometimes with the artifact and the narrative that's in the game. A lot of the artifacts, and I think I can probably show some examples later, tend to focus on things that are ahistorical or out of the historical moment, but are, I think, historically expedient because they fit with what you're supposed to be doing, right? The aqueduct section in the Roman area is a really good example of that. All the pictures of aqueducts are from outside of Egypt, from other parts of the Roman era, or the Roman Empire, and the aqueduct that you're exploring in the discovery mode is actually completely fabricated. It didn't exist in the space or time in which the game supposedly puts it.
Yeah, and I think the game depends on the idea that the space and visuals then bring you into the game, and Ubisoft is known for, in one sense, making accurate depictions of the space, but the space is also a contrived environment to make sure that you can climb through, walk through, and the environment itself, as I wrote in my notes, it feels comfortable at all times. It feels safe. It feels as if life was not only simple in a sort of basic way, but that life was good for everyone. When they take examples of workers and worker interaction, all of the descriptions of the workers are that they were fed, life was good, they had medical attention. There's no sense of differences between social class, often except for basic work and dress.
Right. Well, and here, I mean, this is a good example, right? Here's workers working in some environments, and everybody does look well treated, well fed, content, yeah. Happy to be doing the work. There's no boss around anywhere, or at least one that's not, or there's no evidence of class distinction here, I think, as Jeff just said. And the environment just turns it into this,
it's a placid,
plastic kind of, right, sanitized version of the past.
I almost imagine if they made like New York late 19th century, would everybody be content walking around as you walk through, the 5 boroughs?
I think they are.
5 points.
In the other Assassin's Creed game.
Well, in that sense, it means
Once
what
ready,
is
the
the
bread and grain mixtures
educational
were
ideas
pressed
being
and then strained
proffered
into a
here?
sieve with water into the mix of malt beer.
Random
Once
kid
fermented,
running
the beer
across,
mass
just
was
checking out.
crushed
Oh, hey,
into
Caesar.
and again compressed by foot or with pestles.
So again, the environment is completely static in this instance. You can't really do anything other than follow the yellow brick road, and if you do, stray off. Right? It just really bothers me that the only interaction is that, right?
Is bumping
you run
things.
into people, and
Yeah.
but it doesn't result in anything. You just keep them from going on their merry way.
It seems I'm not going to develop the game, but it seems like having a couple NPCs strewn throughout who had some basic interaction.
Right.
You could have them all have a few the same interactions. Right. It just something.
Or even in the environment, right? Like
pick up a tool.
I can't do anything here except for literally just look around and look as if I'm about ready to kill somebody as Caesar. Which is another issue with the game, right? Is that they've taken, this is essentially the game, right? And then what they've done is stripped everything, all the gameplay elements out of it. So I can't load weapons, I think
they saw gameplay as separate from pedagogy and learning of history, which is funny, which we've talked about this before. It's distinct that Oregon Trail, first developed in the early 70s, tried to combine those in some gameplay way, right? And it's interesting that you could, as you know, you have died of cholera, typhoid, whatever. And in this, it's like this fear of having students engage in anything that might
be gamey.
Is taken
playful.
out.
Yeah. The playful elements are taken out, and I think
we're 50 years later, and we've gone backwards.
Regressed. So instead, it's just, hey kids, let's walk through a museum and don't touch anything.
It's a basic interactive PowerPoint that does nothing.
Once smooth, the beer was stored in pottery jars and sealed with a clay stopper. It probably couldn't be kept for long, and likely had a thick, pasty appearance and texture.
So this is another one of those examples.
Leftover grains were reused to make sourdough bread, or combined with the next batch of beer.
This station doesn't seem to fit with what is happening in this area. They just talked about basically the storage and preservation of the beer and bread, and where's that happening? Where is the beer being put into its jars? and what are these things that I'm looking at here? Why is there a pit here? Are these fermentation vessels? Are they right? I mean, even just a label on those things that I'm looking at would have been slightly helpful and may have made this a little bit more valuable. There's a guy pouring beer into buckets, and there's some amphras in the back. Is that what it was being stored in?
There's a point where you could have interactivity where he just has you do a job, which would be funny because Caesar doing the job would be something completely ahistorical, but at least interesting.
Most of the knowledge known about ancient Egyptian brewing comes from an account by the alchemist Zosimus over 300 years after.
And are students supposed to take notes on this? Are they using this information in conjunction with the classroom, or are they imagining, like, because you can't really use this in a classroom. One person can move along the ribbon, presumably the teacher, so this then becomes kind of a glorified documentary of Egypt in the classroom, because the other 30 students or however many will have to sit there while someone guides Caesar along. And we know how well 10-year-olds sit there while they're doing nothing.
Right. And so Jeff is the one that's sitting while I'm moving this along.
See how agitated I'm getting?
And again, here's another one, right? So we're talking about baking, and I'm staring at a fire.
I mean, well, everybody likes to stare at fire.
Sit down by the fire, kids, and let me tell you the story of ancient brewing.
The ribbon also, for me, again, I get stuck on it, but supposes this sort of sense of limited direction and teleological nature of what I must know.
And I have to go this way. And you do. I mean, in fact, to finish this, right?
You get your little badge, which is the worst form of gamification you could have.
But to finish it, I have to visit all the stations. And if I go off course and I try to go to one of the stations, and this is the last one.
After it?
If I try to do them out of order, it won't let you. It forces you back onto the line and forces you back around, right? This is how it happens. This line and this line only.
That reinforces sort of the idea that while history is chronological, that knowing and understanding history can only be taught or known in a chronological fashion.
Right.
There's no themes. I mean, there's beer here, but those stations. Go, Caesar.
Woo! All right.
Jump.
I wonder what the real interaction would be if Caesar just popped up on a ladder in front of some random people who are
You're trying to sleep on their
down.
straw.
Here, get out of my way.
All right, Caesar, just do a dive. Let's jump into a bale of hay or something.
Is there a bale of hay down there?
It doesn't matter. You won't. There's no consequences in this game.
That's it.
There are absolutely none.
Yeah, because it's not a game. It's
Thank you.
Literally just a
It's a bad form of pedagogy.
I'm going
the mechanics here for learning are reduced to nothing more than listening to the teacher, who in this case is Miss or Mrs. Museum Voice.
To leaven the bread, they added sourdough or leaven from beer brewing.
Oh.
Ovens were circular.
I watched some walkthroughs on this also of adults playing it, and several of the adults were very after they played the Assassin's Creed actual game and then played this, and several of them described themselves as history buffs or really interested in history, and they seem to be having a good time because they felt like they were learning something, and that may be true. However, these were adults, clearly, and they could do this at their own pace and might know what to look for. At the same time, one of the other problems I have with this is, as Sean mentioned earlier, is this reinforces the idea of history lacking any sort of process or ways that you can connect material and ideas. Like having some sense of bringing in, finding things and making connections and creating your own text is, I think, essential to students understanding the historical process. Awesome. Now I can have some beer and bread.
Right. Well, and now I know how it was made.
I think.
I'm not sure what I got from this.
Who was it made for? Was there...
What was the market for it? I can go back and we can find out who...
Please don't.
We can find out who consumed it.
The last thing I need to do is do this again. Can we please go somewhere else?
Right.
This is why Caesar was killed.
Beer to Caesar. So and now with that done, right, you can explore this open world. Granted, but this is something that
it's
Ubisoft's
beautiful.
known for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is a beautiful world. It's a well conceived of world in that it is perhaps what these ancient places may have looked like. But like Jeff was saying earlier, it's really clean. And the world is incredibly sanitized, and everybody seems to be doing well, and nobody seems to be suffering from poverty or
any malady of a general kind,
any illness or.
And I know you can't do this in games in a physical sense, but there's no sense of heat or dryness. That doesn't come off. I mean, you get a little dust there, but even in like, let's say Red Dead Redemption, you get some sense of like the desert harshness when they're in those environments. And this is just...
Or hell, even in Zelda, in Breath of the Wild, right? When Link enters into a hot environment, it starts taking hearts away.
Right.
Right, and you have to change clothes or find a.
Well, you couldn't do that here because Caesar gets 1 alpha and 2,
but he can,
it's not a game.
Right, but Caesar can, in his royal garb, just kind of walk out into the ocean. And
I thought he was going to do the
go for a
butterfly
swim.
stroke with his cape on or whatever. That is a tough swim right there.
Right, and can he get into this fisherman's net?
Will he be caught up?
No, he'll just bounce off of it, I'm sure. Yeah, see, can't do.
Oh,
wait, we can stand on a fishing net.
Well, he was extraordinary.
So, right, and so you could now and this is how I imagine if this is being used in any kind of classroom environment, which I find really difficult to believe. The idea that you'd have 25 PlayStation 4 sitting in a classroom and a group of students on a controller seems a little cost prohibitive, maybe. And even if it's just one in the classroom and the teacher's doing this, then you're going to lose every student. Right.
It would be a waste of money to have 30 of these in class.
Well, for this, for sure. Right. And so you can just continue to explore the open world environment and maybe discover. I did air quotes there. You couldn't see that. Discover another discovery area. Or you can switch back over to the map and see that I'm standing in the ocean there. Is that an ocean or is it the river? That's the lake.
Yeah.
And you can then fast travel to another one of these areas. You can go to the pyramids or... so I don't know what we want to do next as an example of this. You can also choose from... We were talking about doing some more everyday life.
Alexandria or daily life.
Let's choose daily life and see where... I'm not going to do the mummies. Where's the workers?
They're workers in
Let's
transport.
see how workers are dealt with. So workers and transport. The mechanics of this choosing area are really horrible.
What's that? It's our first time.
Yep.
You gotta get it going.
So we can give there's Caesar and the Matrix. Right. So you get game hints and you can get little historical factoids. As this loads up.
Shebang. Still, because it cycles.
Day-night.
Yeah.
Even while you're playing,
Right.
and in some of the discovery levels, that day-night cycle actually gets in the way, and you can't see the things that you're supposed to be discovering. So this is workers in transport. We're supposed to understand who the people involved in the creation of ancient Egyptian monuments and understand their techniques.
Oh yeah.
I find that now.
I've done this
I'm
one.
not an Egyptologist by any stretch of the imagination, but it was my understanding that it wasn't just workers that may have been building these things.
Workers sounds nice.
Better than slaves?
Well, there's many problems here.
Right?
I've done this one,
Right.
and you're going to find some interesting things.
This is a bit like Kanye.
It's gonna
all
take.
these people had a choice.
It's going to take five minutes if you would just stop and play. Or I don't even want to use the word play or game anymore.
And
No.
transport.
If you would follow the ribbon
The yellow
to
ribbon.
its
Terminus.
purposeful conclusion and the museum narration.
Yes. Oh, look at that. Caesar wears socks with sandals.
Yeah.
Mm.
So is that guy. He
He's
did
a
that.
tourist.
He started a fashion.
He's a real tourist. All right, so we're going to find out about these workers, sans slaves.
Who are the
Whether
workers?
workers were employed for the pyramid construction or at the quarries, the government supplied food and housing. Workers
They were
in the
socialists.
pyramids and royal necropolises were housed in more permanent villages, such as the famous Deir el-Medina. Quarry workers had more temporary lodgings. All skill levels were needed and utilized.
What
from
were the
basic
skill
work hands
levels?
to prepare the gypsum, to brickmakers and sand carriers, to skilled stonemasons to shape the blocks.
Okay, thank you. And
So there's the workers' housing in Medina.
we're gonna get to you. Wait till you get this next station. Get
All
up there.
right,
It's
well.
gonna be. You're gonna like this. It's a true socialist
But I
society.
want to watch some people sleep for a while.
We'll stand on them. There's some. It appears that something would happen if you stand on these circles.
I can join them.
Oh
Because Caesar's tired.
man, he did go swimming and fishing
He
nets
did.
last night.
He just cuddled up with his friend.
Yeah, hey bud, what's going on? Oh, Caesar, I forgot you were coming today. I thought you would wear a different outfit for this occasion. No,
All right. Caesar, wake up.
I like the look at the synchronism. That would get some
They are.
serious points in synchronized swimming.
Synchronized sleeping. There they go. Oh, wee, oh.
Don't go to that bed, Caesar.
They're about to be replaced. Okay, I thought those guys were going to walk up on them. All right, so this is where we bake our daily bread that we just learned about earlier.
Not that it
It
would
looks like they're praying.
hit that marker. Hit
And again, I don't want to hit it yet.
Come on.
There's somebody. All right.
Skilled architects and engineers were employed year-round, while support labor were often farmers who worked on the quarries or construction during the Nile's flood season. The basic laborers were hardworking and versatile. Many may have been farmers who joined the construction during the off-season.
They may have been.
It may have been. The qualifications here will elude anybody not paying attention. Because may often in this context mean you're saying they were, and that's what you want someone to
Yes.
think they were. I'm not saying they weren't hardworking, but
I've disturbed his sleep.
well, shit. If Caesar comes by, you better get to work.
Caesar wants the bed to himself.
I want this scratchy straw mattress.
Oh, God.
Archaeological research shows that no food was stored or prepared on site, but instead workers received abundant rations of bread, beer, and meat.
Abundant. I
These
don't
rations
know
were taken
to the
care
extent
of
they
by an
were fed.
administration outside the village.
But my presumption from watching this is that it was a veritable gluttonous feast.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they could get back to work when they felt like it.
Yeah, they don't seem to have.
There's-
I do think there was an overseer image on this last station, and there doesn't seem to be an unless that's the
He's
overseer.
doing a terrible.
And he's doing a really
he's like,
horrible job.
I wash my hands. And,
Caesar's here. I don't have to do my job. So,
oh, here's some labor.
Here's some stone meat.
This guy chose his.
chose his hammer.
While some quarries were close to the Nile, others were located across the desert and required long expeditions.
This is
These
not one of them.
expeditions were sanctioned by the state. They involved complex logistics and required many participants. Transporting a block by land meant that workers had to overcome the weight and friction of the load.
Well, let me do it. Let me
solve
lose
this,
some
they
strength.
first
Let
dug a
me
track on the
feel
ground.
Let me
game
This
like what
ground
it's
was
like.
sometimes
Let me
reinforced with rails upon which a sled.
engage in the building
let
of
me
the
lose
pyramids.
strength because I haven't eaten from the gluttonous feast the socialist society has provided me.
Right, and then this is the one thing that just drives me crazy in this, and we've said it already, and that's one of many things it does. We've said this already, but the little image thing over in the left-hand corner there, it does promise more information, and if you click on the X, you're supposed to get more information. But what you're getting, and
What
I
they
think we
just
said
read.
that, is the exact same thing that they just read, and there is no more information. There's no way of following any kind of intellectual curiosity.
Is there a way to make the narrator stop talking?
No, you can't turn off the narration. At least, well, I'm sure you can mute. You can mute the sound.
Besides muting everything.
But I mean, to be honest, having somebody on the internet look this stuff up, would be better for kids. If there was an intellectual...
It's 50-50.
But if there was an intellectual thread that they wanted to follow, right? At least there's hypertext, and you can continue down a path of your own of real discovery.
Or even download these resources for the student, and then you could have a printout, or you could go there on your... If you're in the classroom with computers, you could go there at your own leisure.
Right. I want to know more about this sledge, right? But this is it. That's all I'm going to get.
You're just going to get jokes about how it looks like Santa's sleigh or something.
All right. So I can hide the text, and I can see even
there's
more
there's
of
not
the image.
Even worse, like a museum will have a sense of scale, and a museum where it's digital will also have, I forget what you call them now, but the measured item there, so you know how big it is. This, to me, looks like it's 1 foot long.
Right. I can't, in any other, even on the web, I can often manipulate image or manipulate objects.
It's a 3D.
It's 3D. I can't move this. And you would think in a built environment that's built from a complete 3D engine that I should be able to kind of manipulate this thing, move it around, take a look at the front and back of it. Although I'm not sure why that would be exciting.
But it would be something,
4 pieces of wood.
And additionally, you're Caesar. You should be able to do whatever you please. Like, if you play as Caesar, you should get some extra mechanics within this.
And people should maybe recognize you.
Or maybe they're too fearful. I don't know. I don't know how he was recognized.
Yeah, this is the other. This is one of the things we've talked about often, is the idea of embodying a historical actor. Is so
problematic.
Yeah.
Because this also gets played on in classrooms to embody a historical figure, as if a student and or I could somehow know what that embodiment would mean or do.
Right.
Historians have enough trouble trying to figure out what people meant or were thinking or were doing, and to have a student imagine that without this sort of background is...
Oops, I didn't mean to run into that, and look what happens when you do.
Elevation onto the sled. Workers then poured water onto the clay at the front of the sled, creating a slick surface to more easily move the load.
Let me pour the water. Let me learn about science. Even the historical lesson can be about so many things, and I think they have the idea it's about art and science, and yet none of those are ever integrated.
And we don't do any of those things.
This is why we play Assassin's Creed, right? We can jump on things, we solve puzzles, we're immersed in the game, and those are mostly divorced. The jumping serves no
purpose,
right?
No.
During flood season, the Nile was at its largest and deepest, which allowed the transportation of the heaviest and biggest loads. Quarries close to the river had troughs dug out to deliver the stones to the shoreline. Harbors and wharfs situated at the river's edge allowed the
and Sean and I have talked about this. This game has got a lot of positive press about bringing games and history into the classroom. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I won't speak for Sean, though I think I could, is that I think it was an interesting idea that Ubisoft became engaged in. I don't know if it was necessarily pedagogically driven so much as it was driven by other ideas about using their wonderful, beautiful environment that they knew students played, and as a tool for bringing them this engine in this game into the classroom. I think, honestly, it's a bit of a disservice to the game and to educators. It is a simple way to not teach history well.
Yes. And I think they missed, I think what they've done, especially given the $20 cost for the standalone DLC. Right, if you buy the game, the DLC comes free as part of the game package. But if you want just the educational discovery tour, this place that we're playing, it's a $20 standalone investment, and I'm gonna be. I see it as a kind of, and this is cynical, but I see it as a money grab. for Ubisoft pretending to create something that is educational or educationally driven, and not supporting any kind of real pedagogy with the product.
I think they conflate pedagogy with providing, as you mentioned, historical factoids.
Yes.
The Awadi El-Shar papyri detail a limestone load intended for the Khufu pyramid that weighed in at 70 to 80 tons, or 30 blocks. One papyrus is a fragment of
I've
performance notes.
not been paying that much attention to the text as we've been playing, but this does feel like it's a little bit out of context. And this is like the beer making one as well. Right? It really is just, instead of having, even if you were going to do this kind of a narrative trail, at least having a connected narrative would make more sense to me. Each station seems to be a standalone fact that isn't connected into the overall movement of these stones or the treatment of workers, or however you want to, whatever it is you're trying to do. I am not going to, but the finish of this, understand how workers were treated.
But then we ask the question, and this is what I found interesting when I played it the first time, is that their interest is not how workers are treated per se. It's about talking about blocks of stone and then showing that people built them, and then pretending that the people were universally treated well.
Yeah.
Because I think they're trying to be very careful about how they talk about these issues, which, I mean, they present history as easy. They present it as bits of information.
Yeah, they present the past as, I think, something. Well, and
they don't. They present material that purports to be what the past was.
Right. And instead of getting the past, or getting, and this is going back to what we were talking about earlier, getting a sense of interpretation, what we're getting is really just a string of facts set in a pretty video game setting that almost disconnects the facts from the setting and from the real is a tough word, but from that from
any appropriate historical discourse that might occur when trying to understand this era, time, and place. And I've said it before that Ubisoft and other games, Rockstar and others do a wonderful job of presenting environments that are feel structurally real, even if there are some modifications for gaming purposes. This uses that idea and then tries to engage in historical discourse, which is not historical discourse or pedagogically situated.
Right. And one of the other things I think we talked about as well is thinking about the way in which these, for gameplay I understand it, but in terms of a kind of historical understanding, how condensed these worlds and environments are, and how, while the geography presents itself as real and scaled, the movement across these geographies is made very easy. And I think in some ways hampers our understanding of the scale and distance that ancient people were traveling, or that people, or the difficulties in making these journeys.
Because one thing,
because I just hopped on a boat.
the students, younger students in particular, have a difficult time understanding distance, both chronologically and spatially, and what it may have taken to get somewhere. And you get no sense of that here. Like, walking somewhere 2 miles.
Right.
I mean, fast travel, we understand you want to learn certain things, but I mean, part of the historical understanding is understanding that people had a different sense of getting around.
And space. And time.
Everything.
And distance. And just... Right.
It's divorce of historical concepts that would help someone understand the era, and then you want me to be Caesar.
Right. Right. And Caesar can Right. I can go for a mile swim here. Surface. Before
Whoa.
Caesar drowns.
You can't drown.
No, you can't. Right. But and in the regular gameplay, it will have a distance meter, and you can cover a swimming distance of a couple of 100 meters without
in
any issue.
Spitzian time.
I'm faster than Phelps right now.
Sorry, I went too far back with Spitz. But he had a mustache, and
So, right, I mean, there's no sense of difficulty at all in this, and it's all right. And I know it's a game. I understand that you
but
need
the game is presenting itself as something
real or at least educational, right?
Yeah.
And swimming is a ridiculous example, but I mean, I can take this road and just run. And I'm going to cover several miles and close the distance that any of these workers would never have traveled in their entire lifetime.
Right.
I can do in the next 5 minutes.
It's interesting. I play walking sims a lot, and almost all walking sims, except for a couple I can think of, and The Witness is one of them, is you can do no more than walk.
Right.
You can try to run, you will never run. In The Witness, you can run, which has these puzzles, but in that, it forces you to think about how far you're going. And walking sims generally aren't that big. But here, you...
I can run as fast as a horse, apparently.
And let me tell you, running on sand ain't no easy feat.
In sandals?
He does have socks on.
I am a little perturbed that my troops are
ignoring
stopping
you
for Caesar.
Giving you their horse?
Yes, exactly. Why am I
Look,
not
you're good at running up sand hills.
I'm as fast as a horse. Why would I need one?
You don't know. Clearly you don't. And where are you going?
Yeah. Let's see if I can whistle for a mount.
Oh, you got
I
something
did.
there.
I whistled for my mount.
Get on it.
Well, we can.
Now, okay.
Now we're even faster and can put a lot of distance.
Can we
behind
go
us.
into any other part of the world outside of the tour?
No. Well,
Is there a limit on the tour range?
We're
Okay.
in an open area of the map right now. So,
But
there's no
I
touring.
couldn't remember if the
Yeah.
tour restricted
No.
you. But
The
you'll
whole
never.
map is open.
Okay.
So we could technically, ride the horse to here, swim across that river,
Right.
and never have to interact with these tour stops,
Right.
right? So if we,
Well, you were just well fed too.
yeah.
So.
Well, Caesar, of course, was always
Well,
fed.
let's pretend he's
So now you do actually
Greek
have,
guy.
right? We do have how far away that.
I like the meters. I'm a big fan of meters and Celsius. I'm not too sure they were using meters back then. In fact, I know they were not. I'm not.
This is a magic horse too. This horse would be great in that across.
I think this whole game is based on magic.
Yahoo!
Do it.
Woohoo!
Now we're kind of devolving into sort of.
This is what happens, though, right? I mean,
Yeah, if I'm a student, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to
This is
find
so-
whatever thing would be most interesting. The most interesting for me right now would be riding a horse off a rock,
Exactly.
or running over someone.
Right, and so you can dismount from the horse.
Why? This is the best part of the game.
Well, because look, I discovered something.
Oh, because you're in a different tour.
Another tour.
You're starting another tour. That's a better way to play the tours.
But from horse to tour.
Yeah.
Well, at least you get to.
Can only Caesar call the horses?
No, anybody can. You just whistle for them.
I didn't know if it was going to be restricted. That might make it interesting too. Each person has a certain quality that would let them engage in the world differently.
Oh, that would actually, yeah, no, and you would think that like Caesar would get a royal tour, right? That his troops would show off, his troops would mass, he could muster them, he could inspect them. If you played with Cleopatra, the Romans wouldn't let you in their encampments.
There you go. Right. Or if you're like just an average person, you get called into pulling the stones and you can't get out of it.
You can't get out of it. You were just conscripted into work, my friend. And it is work, of course. It wouldn't be slavery. This is supposed to tell us.
You're killing me, Kanye.
This is supposed to make us understand geography of the ancient world. This one, and it starts with
is an enormous basin in the western desert that formed from the Nile's overflow. As such, it is not considered a true oasis, though it gives its name to the region, which covers Lake Morris. The oasis harbors some of the oldest archaeological artifacts of the region, indicating that the area has been inhabited by hunters and gatherers since the Neolithic period.
So, we are learning some exciting things about a floodplain.
There's no even discussion about, and I know this is different, but okay, there's Caesar, right? Who is he? Look at him. And then look at his workers. There's no sort of discussion about these sort of background, right? Ethnicity, the placement of the social castes here.
Right.
I know this is about geography, but we could place this back on the one about workers, right? The discussion is
Magic Caesar.
remiss. And now we're doing what we like about Assassin's Creed insofar as we can do it.
Right. But that's it. I mean, that's the only way you can act with the environment, enact with the environment.
But at some time became a saltwater lake. In the 12th dynasty,
I thought they were done.
Egyptians redirected the water flow with the dam and dug a supply canal, using the lake as their reservoir.
Did they... these voices, I'm fairly sure, have been used in other mediums. Could they have... It seems like they picked the ones that are assigned for educational documentaries. And like, we have to use these because they've been used. And come on, we've all been students. And we want to throw things at the TV when we hear those voices.
Well, I also wonder why not use Egyptian voices or...
They're in the background.
Yeah, but
right.
But they're not really in the background because it's nonsense. It's not actual words. It's peas and carrots kind of gibberish.
It's like...
done in an accent that
it's
is
like the
right. And so, strangely, right, what you have is the imperial voice, right, the colonizing voice,
right,
describing
right.
stuff that was artifacts that were removed. And are from British museums or American museums. Oops, my hawk just
speaking
landed on me.
over the
colonized and not allowing them to
in that
have
sense, it's a form
their
of
own voice.
Orientalism.
Yeah, well, it's what 19th century museums were, right? It was oddity. This is a world of oddities, and I'm supposed to be discovering the strange, being offensive, the strange brown people that are...
So it's a 21st version of a 19th century
museum.
Yeah.
That speaks only to the oddities and facts, and...
It's a world of wonders, without really too many wonders.
And kerkeros were the most commonly found craft within a landlocked...
See, the most interesting thing there to me, I mean, that large-scale visual is interesting. But it's pretty
warfare and travel.
Simplified.
It's first century, okay.
But the image of even the boat floating there, has more engagement for me.
I want to know a lot more about this painting.
Oh, jeez.
Right, it's first century pygmy hunt with crocodile. All right, and this is completely detextual.
Completely, and that presents all sorts of issues pedagogically.
Right. I mean, why did they choose this image for this moment? Right, to show us reed boats.
I think the only answer I could have, and this is students might find this attractive in the interesting bits of it, which I would imagine historically and explanatorily problematic. Right? It is called. This is
Medicine House. Pygmy hunt.
Pygmy hunt. Right. This is has to present a lot of odd or interesting historical discussions. But I don't know. In playing this game, I will never know.
Right. Well, and and again, it doesn't suit the text, right? This is supposed to be about reed boats. The only reed boat that's in this image is in the top right corner, and it's right.
It's made by an Italian.
Right.
My assumption up there, Raphael Benici.
Yeah, in the first century. Yeah.
Right, and so that isn't really explained to me why
this matters.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's that boat. I kind of like that.
Right. And that we can.
But look at all the bits you could
explain. Right, and I have to jump over the boat. Oops.
I like it when you can sail the boats.
What can I mount?
You can mount the boat, which is you can go do stuff because you have to if you want to follow the ribbon.
But I can't.
You got to swing it back and forth, buddy. Don't you know how to play games?
Yeah, I do.
Finally, we get to manipulate an object.
Yeah, it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, this was the one part of the game I found interesting.
Yay, I get to do something.
You don't have to follow the ribbon.
But I want to now.
Yeah, I know, but you can
because now there's some skill involved.
There
in
is
trying to follow.
That's true. Yeah, like get some like a little gamify it. Have some points there.
Exactly. Like, what a
ding 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 ding.
Man.
Like a pinball machine.
These are strong too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this part is kind of relaxing and fun, and I found a point in this game that I'm actually engaged in, and I really
don't worry, it will disappear.
I don't want to get to the next stop.
You could turn around.
Maybe I'll just continue onward to the new world.
Oh, you can't. You're going to hit it in the middle of the water up there.
Oh man!
But you can ram that other boat if you want.
No damage occurs, I'm sure.
No. It's like impending doom, that marker up there.
I don't want to learn. Just let me play.
Oh no.
Oh.
Learning of some
pyramids of
form.
ancient Egypt date from the Old Kingdom and can be found on the sites of Giza, Saqqara, and Dashur.
Oh, is it dusk or
However,
sunrise?
one
I guess that's the whole problem, right?
Yeah, we don't know. What direction are we facing?
During the Middle Kingdom, some pharaohs chose the Fayum as their final resting place. One such ruler was Amenemhat III. His pyramid left a mark on the imagination of antique chroniclers.
Cool.
They referred to it
Thank
as
you
the
for
labyrinth,
future people enjoying his death.
temple complex at the foot of the pyramid. Herodotus mentioned that he had visited 12 courts and over 3,000 of its chambers. But he was also well known for being prone to hyperbole.
And what is the point of all that?
Yeah, this is what I'd write on a student paper.
So far I've learned that Herodotus is prone to hyperbole.
Yes. And
hit that big one over there. Just don't hit that marker. Whatever you do.
don't hit the marker. Just avoid the marker.
That's a better game. We've been at this an hour now.
Yeah, we
and
should probably wrap it up pretty soon.
But we're having fun.
Finally.
Fun with the game.
It's now a slalom course around
that would be interesting too. But again, that would be. I could criticize that as being ahistorical, but this whole session is ahistorical. So.
All right, so let's.
And here's the other thing: I'm the other student in the room. This is a class of 2. I don't get to do anything. Sean gets all the fun in this one time of fun.
Brick core and covered with stone slabs, designed to be impenetrable. The burial chamber, made out of a single block of sandstone, is unique in its design. Richard Lepsius and Flinders Petrie both explored the pyramid site, measuring 385 meters
How is it
by
unique
158 meters,
that it's...
and identified it as the location of the labyrinth. Their research conditions were difficult, as most of the site had been submerged by the nearby canal. Furthermore, the stones from the complex and the outer casing of the pyramid had been quarried away long ago.
For what?
Ubisoft decided to give life back to this
Thanks,
lost
Ubi.
monument and the many crypts that were said to be devoted to the sacred crocodile god.
Ubisoft, the life giver.
Yeah.
That's not just what they said. And all I thought it was raw or whatever.
Oops. I wanted to get out of here. Well,
That was an interesting plug for the game maker in
Yeah.
the middle of this
educational bit.
Yeah.
I think it's also. I think what they're trying to do in some ways as well is make certain that you know that these things, a lot of the stuff that is part of the game, don't exist any longer.
They did that with this one thing. We probably could have done this with a myriad of things.
Yeah. Well, at one point I was playing another one of these. It's not the right word. I was enduring another one of these
That's a
discoveries.
endurance games.
And the whole area was a made-up space. And so you're exploring with an ahistorical character. I was using sorry, we interrupted there for a second. I'm going to wash up on the beach. But I was playing an area with Cleopatra in a fake environment. And so you've got this duality of fakeness. That's right.
Right.
It's a place that doesn't exist except in the imagination of the game makers, using a character who wouldn't have ever interacted in a space in that same environment. So,
I mean, in one sense, I could see how it might be constructive if they let you know this was not a real place, but this is something that could give us an idea of the space, right? Like a fictive character.
During the 12th dynasty, under the name of Shedet. During the Ptolemaic era, the metropolis was named Crocodilopolis by the Greeks, in honor of the crocodile god Sobek. During the Greco-Roman era, the clerics, soldiers of the Ptolemies, settled there after their military service and expanded the irrigation systems. Irrigation and water distribution.
The visuals are great.
And turned the city into a lush and rich area. 27,000 inhabitants lived in its precinct at its height. The city's location was strategic in controlling the many small waterways connecting to the main canal, and thus the Nile.
Well, have we done what we've set out to do?
Yeah, maybe I want to complete this one. I need my badge.
You can't. You missed one of these.
Did I?
Yeah, I made you go around it.
I think we hit it.
Oh, did you get it?
Yeah, I think we hit it. I can't take the shortcut.
What is that black line?
It's a bad spot on my TV.
I thought it was, but I wasn't going to bring that up. Now I just did.
It's not on the stream. So the black line that Jeff is referring to is a crappy dead set of pixels on my television. Oh man, I have to park my boat. Looks like we have to unmount.
It's an odd phrasing.
Park my boat?
No, to mount your boat.
Yes.
Are you sure there's only one left?
This is a very long tour.
No, see, there's more up there. Close. Leave. Can you skip?
You can't. Well, the narration will continue.
So you can't. It's like you can't stop.
You can't stop the teacher from talking.
Many local villages had
but you can run while they're talking.
Someone's gonna mod this so you can have different voices or something.
Very similar to the cult of the Apis bull in Memphis, a living crocodile was worshipped within the precinct of Crocodilopolis' main temple.
Should we go see him?
I would jump in and play with him.
And
Bam!
to the Greeks. It was reported by
crocodile god.
priests fed it with meat, wine, and honey.
You should be able to pet him. I mean, if he's not going to eat you, or she.
Jewels and gold. After its death, it was embalmed and placed within the crocodile's grotto, alongside thousands of other mummified crocodiles.
We completed a tour.
Thank you, Crocodopoulos. That's a way to end a tour right there.
Right there. Petting a crocodile at the ancient Egyptian crocodile petting zoo. Which is kind of how
Can you lay on the lily pad or whatever that is?
Only where those little white spots are can you lay down to go to sleep. And I don't know if there is one. So should we put Caesar to bed?
Yeah, can
and
we?
Put this whole
mess to sleep
before we get...
Nice. Oops. Oh, there's no handholds.
Let's see. Where can I sleep in this town? Where's the hotel? In the Crocodile Temple. Well, I'm in the labyrinth. Let's see.
You're gonna run into.
Gotta find some people.
Priest or something.
People always have a place to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we may be in an embalming area, but
it's a form of sleep.
Let's let Caesar kneel Caesar before
kneel yourself.
Apparently.
Oh, he's gonna wash the floors. Nice. I didn't know you could do that. Caesar will wash the floors.
We should probably end with Caesar washing floors
in an embalming area or something. This is good. Stretch it out.
Where is he? We put Caesar to work.
Oh, he's got a scrubbing tool.
Yeah.
That's a good image to leave with.
All right. We'll end with Caesar. Thanks for joining us. If you did, we're kind of done with this. If you didn't catch us earlier, you can listen to us tear this non-pedagogical Discovery DLC apart in the video that will be posted now.
You can join us in the future.
Yep. We'll be around again doing the same kind of thing. Hopefully with something a little more engaging and educational. Thanks for hanging out.